audio recording than anything else. So I'll throw that on. Drinks are on the floor.
Yep.
Video is... Yeah, video as you go.
Alrighty.
And then, by all means, start by checking just to make sure we're good. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird setup, but it's life.
That's okay. We'll adapt it.
Exactly, man. Cheers. Well, thank you for doing this for me.
No problem, man.
Audio looks good. Video looks good.
Video looks good. Coffees are good.
Okay, I figured I would start just by introducing me. And
Okay.
You. Day 27th of November, 4:38 p.m. And take a minute to sort of settle yourself. My name is Gabriel Conybeare Marsh, and I'm here with Nolan Sharper. It is the 27th of November, I believe, 4:38, almost 4:39 p.m. And we're getting together to do another sort of podcast series here, man. I thought for the first one, you know, we did a set of sessions before, and I thought, you know, for this set that we're going to be doing together, it's still coronavirus times, that we should focus on ourselves and the idea that in the future, the people who are most likely to be listening to these things is us.
Right.
So for the first one, each one will have sort of a topic, and for the first one, I thought the topic would just be, you know, why we're doing these things, what you want to get out of it, what I want to get out of it. So, you know, what do you feel like the value of this is for you, man?
So for me, I think it's a good way to practice. I think it's a good way to relax and get into a kind of rhythm when talking to somebody else and being recorded. I just want to get more fluid with podcasting in general and talking to people in general and creating content.
Totally. I mean, it's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
You know, because you like, I know you well, and you're a good talker, but when you actually sit down in front of a mic, in front of the equipment, you know, the jitters start to get to you. It's a performance, and you know, and it's very different performing.
Exactly, yes. And you know, you want to make sure you sound good and you can get all in your head about it. So just having more and more practice sessions just helps you sort of develop that, you know, second nature capacity to just kind of pick it up as we go.
Very much, buddy. So one of the big things for me for this series, and we have no idea how long it's going to last or how many we're going to do.
Right.
But was just, you know, recording our ideas on audio and a little bit on video. Because this is kind of, you know, there's a lot going on.
Right, exactly.
And it would be good for us to be able to look back sort of 5 to 10 years from now.
Right.
And say, oh, you know, I believe this, and that now.
Right.
That I didn't believe then, or that I did believe then, to see what sort of remained over the years and what we've kept, what we've lost. I think it would also be nice to get some predictions down on tape.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so, because, you know, it's nice to, every now and then I feel like I've predicted some things right and some things wrong. I was wrong about Trump's election the first time. I was wrong about the Brexit referendum as well. And I think having a place like this to sort of get that stuff out on the table and, you know, come back and check, and, you know, because you have a tendency to focus on the big wrongs and every little right.
Right.
Really interesting to see how we track into the future.
Absolutely. And it's also cool because you're getting a chance to practice video recording and audio recording more, which I know is something you want to do, and a couple of the skills you want to sort of develop and carry forward.
Totally. No, I wanna be better at processing audio and video.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a useful way to do that.
Absolutely.
So what are some things that let's sort of brainstorm out in the air now. What are some things that you want to talk about in these things going forwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are in a very interesting moment in time. There's, of course, the lockdown happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's the coronavirus. There's the post-election landscape that we find ourselves in. But there's also, and for folks, in case anyone else is listening, we're also situated in Toronto, Canada. And there's a lot of land back initiatives going on right now as well. A lot of indigenous struggles and land back claims that are coming to the surface right now that have been sort of bubbling under the surface of things that are erupting right now. So there's a lot going on right now. And
well, that's kind of one of your things.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So I definitely was thinking that would be fun to talk about. I was also thinking we kind of are able to sort of have this relationship where we bring different ideas or different pieces of information to each other, and then we have a pretty interesting conversation about it because we have different sets of knowledge and different perspectives we bring on it. So I always find it fun to talk to you because I can bring, something or related to pretty much anything, whether it's an article or an activity that I'm doing or a social justice action that I'm a part of, and then we can you have a cool perspective on it that I don't have, and we end up having like a cool conversation about it. So I know we were thinking about sort of trying to put that relationship on camera and on tape as well.
Totally. I mean, and I'm very detached from a lot of the things that I'm interested in. And you have a much more of a sort of on-the-ground approach to this stuff.
But because you're more detached, you're able to kind of have, you're able to sort of analyze parts of it that I can't, right? Because my perspective is limited based on the fact that I'm sort of involved in a particular issue at a particular time, and then when we talk about it, you can kind of have a sort of more bird's eye view of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're, from what little experience I have with this stuff, it's hard when you're invested in something to take steps back.
Exactly.
And there's basic aspects of things, just your interpersonal relationships with the people involved.
Exactly.
That can be positive or less positive.
Yes, and very often emotionally tangled.
Sure.
Yes, but I always find like what you're helpful with, and I think it would be fun to sort of bring that into the podcast, is you're really helpful at sort of following a project that's in process towards its logical conclusion. So you can kind of look at something like whether it's the land back stuff or Oasis stuff, the Oasis Food Hub stuff that we talked about last season.
Of course.
And you're able to kind of have a perspective where you kind of jump in media res or partway through and are like, this seems to be working, this doesn't seem to be working. If this is the desired outcome, you probably need to change these things too. So that, I was thinking that would be kind of really cool to organically incorporate into our conversations as well.
Of course, thank you, buddy. I know, and one of the reason I think it's really valuable for me to talk to you, apart from just the fact that you are involved in all this different stuff, is that you're genuinely very intellectually honest. To a degree that is rare. Cheers.
Appreciate that, man. You too, brother.
With so many people, it's hard to have conversations where you feel like, you're putting all the things that you need to on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of conversations, a lot of discussions, and I really want to go all sorts of different places with this cast, and
absolutely,
and sort of figure out both things that we agree on and can argue about, and things that we can disagree on and argue about.
Exactly.
But you're really good at just like just being in the moment and extending these different parts of things that are really important to who you are, for criticism and for analysis.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that the kind of movements that I sort of am trying to get more involved in really need to take a sobering look at themselves if they are to be successful in what their outcomes are. And I think, your point that really resonates with me about having to keep your cards close to your chest when having different conversations with people.
It makes things hard.
It makes things really hard, and that's, I think, something that we want to do is really organically go into some of the nitty-grittiness of these topics, and be honest about them. We can be honest about sort of how we really feel about an issue like land back, how we really feel about an issue like, efforts to create a different food system without sort of, dealing with a lot of the political language and obfuscation that is required when you are public about those issues.
Exactly. And I one of the things I really struggle with is, I come off as an asshole a lot of the time. Let me.
Oh yeah, check. Let's keep rolling.
But let's just double check to make sure everything's all good here. Oh yeah. Leave it in.
Yeah, leave it in.
But I find it hard in a way because I am quite detached from a lot of things. But intellectually, I think about a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I genuinely feel like I'm trying to help people in some
Exactly,
way. And
yeah.
it's hard for me to figure out what that's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm actually talking to people, it's hard for me not to come off as an asshole because I struggle to not just find points and go
Exactly.
go all the way in on them.
Yeah, man, you're like a New Yorker in that way. You're straight up, which a lot of Torontonians who are more of the mild-mannered sort of capacity don't appreciate as much. I don't think.
Yeah, no, we definitely do a podcast on sort of on these different identities.
Exactly.
You're split between the Canadian and the American, and I'm split between English and Canadian with a little bit of
you got
American
some American
in the
there
mix.
too, for sure. Exactly.
These places I think get grouped together a lot.
Yep.
And maybe there aren't as radical differences between them and certain other places.
Definitely.
But there are huge differences.
There are huge differences. And I think what's fun since we have that kind of cross-border perspective is I think that's informed a lot about how we talk about these issues and how we talk about these things. Like, for example, like with the land back stuff, it's really interesting to see, in Toronto, there's space for this kind of conversation. And not to say that the powers that be aren't sort of trying to inhibit a lot of those actions, but there's just a different kind of context around that conversation that exists in a place like New York, where it's very hard to find, at least when I was living there, find stuff about the indigenous people in New York. Yeah, in a different way. So that might be kind of fun to talk about too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, I want to talk about. I want to take these things relatively slowly.
Exactly.
I want to give sort of each topic enough time to breathe. We're looking again in the sort of half an hour to maybe an hour max for these conversations.
Right. We don't want to bore ourselves or others. Or
I mean, it's just if it gets too long, it's hard to use it as a reference.
True say. Yeah.
But at a certain point, we do want to dig into issues about race, about First Nations peoples,
right?
And as you can see, we're two white dudes,
exactly.
Exactly. And I don't proclaim I don't proclaim to have any real ancestry in First Nations people,
right?
And I don't think you do really
No,
either.
Not that I know of.
But I think it's good that we sit down and we have a discussion first about why it is that we feel like we can talk about these issues, what we have to bring to the table on that.
Exactly.
And then we can go deeper within each issue. I want to talk about Black rights and African American rights.
Yeah, that you've been studying.
I've been doing some reading on that.
Exactly.
And these are. We're not going to get into it right now, but these are things that it's important to not only talk about them, but also
Definitely.
establish why we can talk
Exactly. Just to your point really quickly, I was thinking
course.
about this yesterday on the medicine wheel, which is very important to a lot of cultures, that arose in North America. There's 4 directions. There's the white, the black, the red, and the yellow. And it's representative of all the people of the world. But one of the key, capacities that I've been thinking of is that there is that white direction. There is the importance that white people have a place in these movements too. All of us together as part of the human family have a place. And I think, as white men in particular and white people more generally, it's up to us to kind of figure out what, with humility and with grace and with the kind of intellectual fervor that we can bring, like what our role in these movements is,
Totally.
Allyship, and then perhaps beyond allyship, is you start to get involved and create more of a familiar sort of ties to people in these movements. Like that's something we can talk about as well.
Yeah, and we should talk. We'll probably do a whole episode on allies and what that means, because
Exactly.
I find that word interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Definitely. And a lot of, as you kind of point out, like something that you're, I think, really helpful pointing out is that when people say a big term like ally or a big term like land back or a big term, one of these big kind of, catch-all phrases that get thrown around a lot, that are important, and a lot of people put a lot of value into them. People have radically different ideas
About
of what
that
it
means.
actually means,
Yeah.
right? And it's important to kind of talk about and go through that and talk about the different ideas so that we can get ourselves and then hopefully other people on the same page,
So yeah, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about at some point I want to talk about Israel Palestine.
Yeah.
Just because that's been such a part of my intellectual development,
Right.
thinking about oppression and oppressors
Right.
and all of these sort of intertwined issues.
Right.
I want to talk about argument in general.
Yeah.
More my sort of stuff.
Yeah.
More high level analysis.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it doesn't have to all be political. A lot of it, I think we should just try and relax and have a good
Yeah,
time and
exactly. Maybe those more relaxed ones are the ones we can kind of start out with,
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, like, we should talk about games at some point.
Yes, yeah.
Because they've played a big role in my life, and a lot of my life has to do with, a lot of different points in my life are about how I manage my relationship with the games.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Okay. 15 minutes. You got more space than that. All right, we're going to call a pause on this one for a moment. Okay. Seems like we have sound.
Yes. Check. Right.
Sound and video. I'm in a good position. You're in a good position. Audio is on and ready to rumble.
Nice.
Marby's in the building.
Yep. Okay.
All right, buddy. So, got caught up there for a moment. Medicine wheel.
Yeah, so you were talking about allyship and how we're going to do a show on that, we think, because it's a really important topic to get into. And we were talking about whiteness, and I was talking about just how the medicine wheel, there's 4 directions. There's the black, yellow, red, and white, and how, for me, that, is really important because white people are part of these social movements, just like everybody else, and we're part of this large human family. But I think allyship for a lot of, socially conscious white people is a path to sort of figure out how to come back into that fold, because whiteness as a political ideology has sort of separated humanity into different social castes, with the idea of white folks being supreme. And that's something we can get into as well. But for me, undoing that and kind of restoring that balance and entering back into this sort of shared idea of a human family is part of, how I see allyship unfolding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
we don't just want to talk about political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we talk about other things.
Right, exactly.
Talk about gaming.
Yeah.
Talk about music.
Definitely.
There are things that you're passionate about that we should talk about. There are things that I'm passionate that we should talk about.
Exactly.
I kind of want to, and hopefully there'll be some place for just sort of honesty about where our lives are at this moment.
Yes. Yeah.
We want to record not just our thoughts and ideas, but also some observations about the world.
Exactly.
Some observations about what's going on inside our place here.
Yeah, exactly. This is a really interesting time. There's a lot going on, and who knows what the world will look like in 5 years. But
who knows what the world will look like, and who knows what our world will look like as well. And partly, I want to talk about. I want to talk about arguments. I want to talk about theory, about logic,
right?
About all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And you're a really good guy to talk with.
Yeah, it's fun. It's helpful, I think, and I think we could talk about communication too. How to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on that, because I know you thought a lot about that.
Over
the last little while.
That continues to be a big struggle for me because I spent so much time trying to figure out what I wanted to communicate.
Right.
And it's only in the last year or two that I've started to come to terms with the fact that that just having things you think are worthwhile and that are important and that are going to help people in your brain gets you not very close to actually communicating them.
Yeah, it's complicated, and
the relationship between rhetoric and logic.
Exactly, and that's why we're doing these podcasts too, because I want to figure out different ways to communicate, and I'm not as technically inclined as you are, so this is really helpful for me too. But we're exploring together like different methods of communication and how to effectively get our ideas out there, and have a conversation that we can look back at, and maybe some other people will too.
Yeah, I mean, a huge part of it for me was the kind of selling point was I feel like we have these sort of typically kitchen conversations.
Yes, when we're cooking.
I think if they were with other people would be quite heated.
Yeah.
But because we're both genuinely just trying to get our stuff across. Yeah. Like putting that forward as a model in some ways for us in the future.
Exactly.
To sort of model relationships on and to figure out, how did we get to this place?
Right.
How are we able to talk about things that are complicated and difficult, and yet still, remain level-headed and have a good exchange.
Exactly.
That we can both get things.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I know that I've had to do a little bit of work on my side. Like there's a certain
me too.
Certain degree. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's a certain degree of just figuring out what it is that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Drawing you in with certain things, and then there are points where I can insert some of my own stuff.
Right, exactly.
But it's really important to have that sort of exchange.
Definitely.
Like if I'm show interest and I sort of help think about and develop your ideas, then that gives you an opportunity to do the same sort of stuff with me.
Exactly.
And sort of. You get out what you put in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good way to, I think, handle these topics, because I think showing people or illustrating for people, including ourselves, just how to deal with difficulties and how to deal with this problem of heavily politicized or heavily scrutinized language that often can make people feel publicly like they have to sort of, maybe just carte blanche accept everything about a certain movement to be involved with it. That's, or a certain, or a certain buzzword, and they just kind of have to go along with things in order to participate. That's something I really want to, step away from. I love a lot of the people I work with, but I don't agree with them on everything, right?
Totally.
And, I think we have healthy...
And the world would be a worse place if you did.
If we did, exactly. It wouldn't be interesting, and we wouldn't get anywhere. We wouldn't develop our ideas if we didn't have anybody to kind of pitch them up against, But
that being said, there are a lot of things, differing viewpoints and perspectives, and the way people interact in sort of radically different ways.
Yeah.
These are all really important.
Exactly.
That being said, a huge amount of what I'm interested in and what I believe pretty firmly is that there are basic parts of our lives and our experiences together that we need to agree on.
Yeah.
There's a framework out there that everybody can find if you look hard enough.
Yeah.
That sort of establishes, what it is we should not have to argue about.
No, exactly.
And I think this isn't just a Gabe thing. Like I have sort of my own way of presenting this information and of developing it in what I feel is a really intellectually rigorous way. But a lot of it just reinforces things that people in your life and your movements and my life and my movements already believe.
Exactly.
Like I was raised with this really sort of just iron-fisted doctrine about human rights.
Yeah.
Like human rights are important.
Yeah.
Human rights you don't compromise on human rights.
No, exactly. Same with my folks too. My dad in particular. I think we've both kind of had that, and then but I think it's really important because even though these are things we should collectively as a species agree on for our own benefit, we don't right now.
No.
And that's one of the big issues of that we can get into is why don't we agree on these things?
And part of the journey through my life has been discovering that there are all these crazy things that I thought everybody kind of was gelling on, and it turns out that that's not how it is at all.
No, exactly.
And so I guess to sort of sum up what we've covered so far in this cast, this pod, whatever you want to call it, there's a bunch of topics we're going to cover. We've listed out a couple of them. We also want to observe what's going on now.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of this puzzle, I think, is talking about the past.
Yeah.
Talking about what's happened before.
Right.
Talking about, our experiences at school together.
Right. Yeah, that would be good. That would be really good.
Yeah. Your experiences in New York.
Yeah.
My experiences in Philadelphia growing up.
Exactly.
Just my experiences in England, your
Exactly.
experiences in Toronto, your experiences being homeschooled.
Yeah, man. Oh God.
Right. Tap the well. So not just all these not just political ideas, not just the current, not just the different ways and the things and the parts of the world that we're interacting with.
Yeah, exactly.
Music and reading. We both read a huge amount. It's important to.
We can talk. We have good conversations about what we read together because we read different things. We read some of the same things, but it all helps illuminate where we want to go. Yeah, and I like it because I think what I want to do is be able to look at this, however long from now and be like, okay, these guys, had some ideas, but they're also human beings. They like to read, they like to play games, they like to talk about that. They like to talk about the things they cared about in their lives, and that they're people we can relate back to, as fully human people with flaws and all.
Because whatever happens in the future, there's going to be struggles. There's going to be good times and bad times. Exactly. We've already experienced our own fair share of that.
Definitely.
But your recollection of things. I as I did a degree in psychology.
Yes. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there I have a lot of opinions on psychology and on its ability to evaluate the human psyche and all sorts of other things. But there's only certain chunks that I feel are really valuable. Yeah. Or at least that are. And even smaller sections of that I feel are really grounded and that reflect the way the brain works. Right. But one of those is about recollection, and the fact that when you are thinking back and remembering things, when you are resurfacing memories, you are interacting with them and changing them. Right. So having things like this, where we are recording what we are saying and thinking, gives us a way to kind of sidestep that.
Yeah.
You know, the recollecting things changes the way you perceive the past.
Right.
And there are aspects of your own perception that you can't alter when you are viewing things. I'm probably getting a little too abstract here, but it's very different having a recorded piece of work.
Right.
That just sets forth what you were remembering at the time.
Exactly.
Than it is to just keep on thinking back and bringing that memory back up.
No, exactly.
And we should talk about memory and different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into that, but I think we established those kind of 3 major points.
Exactly.
You know.
So hit me back with them.
Yes, we got talking about our past.
Yep.
Talking about political ideas.
Yep. Talking about ideas. Yep.
And I think talking about this moment in time and just our observations about the world and what's going on around us, and how we generally feel about what it's like to live in 2020.
Yeah,
East side of Toronto, like what's going on, just in the world we live in, right?
Because the sad reality of the thing is, I think we both feel like we're paying too much rent.
Yeah, definitely.
But if the way things are trending right now, it might not be possible for people like us to live where we are in the future.
Exactly.
And I hope that things change and that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe 5 years from now it's the same. Maybe 10 years from now things started to shift.
Right.
Who knows?
Exactly.
And it'll be important to have this sort of reflection.
No, definitely.
So I guess when we were doing the Rise pod, at the end of each one we sort of I had this idea that we should ask people what they can do.
Right. Exactly.
What is it that you can do? And I guess I want to have something like that for the end of these. Yeah. But it doesn't really make sense to have it be the same one.
No, it could be a different question,
Yeah. So, and, we don't have to solve this on air.
Yeah. I kind of like if we had, maybe it's a little kitschy, but if we had a question or a comment for our future selves looking back, since we've kind of structured this that we're going to be the main audience,
No, I like that.
Yeah, there's some kind of question we can have or say something, or reflection for our future selves looking back, like just something we could say to them. I don't know.
Yeah, what would you say to us in the future?
Let's see.
Well, I hope and let's each do one. So no, that's a smart idea. And I think that's enough editing for.
Exactly. Got some work.
We got some work to do now. So I guess here's what I say. I'm hoping this series goes off good. I'm hoping we get a bunch of good stuff in. I really think it's going to carry on into 2020. Yeah. 2021. Yeah. Sorry. In the future, I want to look back at this stuff and feel like we've changed. I want. There's a lot of things that I think are good, but my overall project for this is to record what's going on right now, so that I can come back to it and be like, that's the person I was. This is the person I am now.
Exactly.
I've gotten better.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to be better in the future.
Definitely. And I think
How about you, buddy? What's your
to that end? I want to let my future self know that this year has been a particularly different year than others in the past. A lot has changed this year. The reality we knew wouldn't hold based on kind of our ideas about the future has changed very, very quickly. Maybe a lot more quickly than I thought it would. But I also want to let our future selves know that we can adapt, that we are in the process of adapting to that now. Gabe and I are figuring out what the future looks like for us, and that, as hard as it is, I think adaptation is possible. And I want to see how we adapt and change, as you said, in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. That was good number one. Yeah, man.
See you for the next one.
Yeah, see you for the next one. Thanks, guys. Good idea, man. Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, bro.